In the year 3072, humanity had become a galactic force, a species no longer confined to the boundaries of Earth. Entire systems had been colonized, interconnected by faster-than-light FTL travel. Peace was not just a dream, but a reality built upon centuries of exploration, cooperation, and technological advancement. Yet, even with their vast knowledge, humans had barely scratched the surface of the mysteries hidden in the universe. It all began on Orion's Reach, a remote planet at the farthest edge of human-occupied space. The planet was rich in precious metals, its vast caverns containing resources crucial to sustaining humanity's ever-growing empire. Mining had been its primary industry for decades, with automated machines boring deep into the planet's core. It was during one of these routine operations that something unprecedented happened. Buried beneath miles of rock and molten ore, miners uncovered a spherical object, pulsating with a faint, almost hypnotic glow. At first, it appeared inert, its surface smooth and flawless, but the energy readings were off the charts. The sheer amount of power it emitted was staggering, unlike anything the miners had ever encountered. They reported the find immediately, and soon after, a team of top scientists arrived to investigate. The object was transported to a specialized research facility on the surface of Orion's Reach for further study. Colonel Mira Vance, commander of the Frontier Fleet and a seasoned veteran of many exploratory missions, was called in to oversee security. Mira had a reputation for being calm under pressure, a leader who had faced countless unknowns and survived. However, from the moment she stepped foot on Orion's Reach, she sensed something was wrong. There was an unsettling tension in the air, as if the planet itself knew it was sitting on the edge of a precipice. Inside the research facility, the lead scientist, Dr. Adrian Lennox, briefed Mira on their findings. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," Lennox explained, her voice tinged with both excitement and dread. "The sphere seems to be older than this planet, possibly older than our galaxy. It emits a low-frequency hum, almost like it's alive." Mira frowned as she examined the live feed from the containment chamber. The object hovered mid-air, suspended by a field of magnetic energy. Its pulse had a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. "Is it dangerous?" she asked, her eyes never leaving the sphere on the monitor. "We don't know," Lennox admitted, rubbing her temples, "but we're being cautious. We've tried scanning it with everything we have, X-rays, gamma waves, subspace probes, but the sphere seems to absorb all forms of energy we throw at it. The thing is, it's responding to us." Responding how? At first it was just emitting low pulses, but now it's accelerating. It's as if the more we study it, the more it reacts. We've detected small fluctuations in the planet's electromagnetic field as well. Nothing too extreme yet, but it's escalating. Mira's instincts told her this was more than a simple anomaly. "Pull back your team. Stop any further testing until we know what we're dealing with." But it was too late. That night, as the scientists prepared to wind down their experiments, the sphere began to hum louder. The air around it vibrated, a deep resonance that echoed throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed, alarms blared, and the ground trembled as an unnatural earthquake rippled through the planet. Mira raced to the command center, shouting orders to her officers. Outside, the sky over Orion's Reach began to split. At first, it appeared like a thin crack running through the atmosphere, but as the tremors grew in intensity, the crack widened. Streaks of impossible light emerged from the fissure, glowing with colors that defied human perception. It was as if the sky itself was being torn apart, revealing something beyond, something that shouldn't exist. Mira barked into her communicator, "Evacuate the surface. Get everyone to the ships. Now!" The scientists were in full panic mode. Data screens flashed red with warnings, and the containment chamber began to overload as the sphere's pulse grew erratic, faster and faster. The object, now glowing intensely, seemed to be pulling energy from the planet itself. Machines sparked, exploding from the overload, and the lights flickered ominously. Outside the facility, soldiers and workers scrambled to the transports, but Mira stayed behind, watching the crack in the sky grow. As it expanded, she could see more of the strange light beyond it, light that twisted and shimmered like liquid in space. She had never seen anything like it, but deep in her gut, she knew they had awakened something dangerous, something ancient. Dr. Lennox ran into the control room, breathless, her eyes wide with terror. "Colonel, we've made a terrible mistake. The sphere, it's not just reacting to us, it's signaling something." Mira turned sharply, her pulse quickening. "What do you mean?" "I think it's a beacon, and we just activated it." Before Mira could respond, the sky split open completely. Above them, the stars themselves seemed to tremble, distorting as waves of energy surged through the atmosphere. A powerful shock wave erupted from the crack, sending a pulse through the entire planet. The ground buckled, and buildings collapsed as people screamed in terror. But it wasn't the destruction that terrified Mira. It was the eerie silence that followed. The crack in the sky closed as quickly as it had opened, but the damage was done. Communications with several outer colonies were lost, and distant stars began to flicker unnaturally. In that moment, Mira realized the horrifying truth. They had just made contact with something beyond human comprehension, and whatever was on the other side was waking up. Mira stood on the bridge of her ship, the horizon's edge, watching the planet below crumble under the aftershocks. The galactic government would be mobilized soon, but she knew it wouldn't be fast enough. Something was coming, something older than the stars themselves. And as she clenched her fists, staring at the stars that had gone dark, she felt a cold fury rising within her. Whatever had been awakened, it had underestimated one thing: the resilience of humanity. They had been through hell before, and they had survived. But now, something darker stirred within her, something primal. She didn't know it yet, but the universe was about to learn that when humans got angry, the stars themselves trembled. The situation escalated faster than anyone could have predicted. Within days of the event on Orion's Reach, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Unexplained phenomena were happening everywhere: planets destabilizing, stars flickering, and entire systems losing contact without warning. At first, the Galactic Council, a federation of humanity's most advanced worlds, attempted to downplay the events. They blamed solar flares, magnetic storms, and rogue gravitational forces. But soon, the truth could no longer be denied. Something vast and terrible was sweeping across the galaxy. Colonel Mira Vance had returned to the horizon's edge, stationed now at the edge of human-controlled space. She had barely slept since the incident, her mind racing with thoughts of the object, the sphere that had triggered this catastrophe. Despite every effort to contain the situation, it was clear they had set off a chain reaction, a cosmic disturbance that no technology could stop. From her ship's command deck, Mira received a constant stream of distress calls. The galaxy was fracturing, and every message seemed to carry the same haunting undertone: confusion, panic, and fear. And then came the whispers. The first signal to catch Mira's attention was a broken transmission from a colony on Proxima Centauri 4. "This is Proxima. We are under attack. Light is consuming everything. Please, we need help." The signal cut off abruptly. No one could get through to Proxima after that. In the days that followed, other colonies went silent. From the scattered remnants of communication they intercepted, it became clear: something was devouring entire worlds. It wasn't just that people were dying. It was as though entire star systems were being erased from existence. Mira's heart pounded as she watched footage of disappearing colonies. The images were unlike anything she had ever seen. Space seemed to fold in on itself, the stars blinking out as if someone had flipped a switch. And at the center of every vanishing system was a shadowy presence, a colossal dark mass that defied explanation. It didn't move in the traditional sense. It didn't have a physical form, but rather a creeping, pervasive essence that absorbed light, matter, and energy with silent efficiency. Dr. Lennox had remained aboard the horizon's edge, helping Mira and her crew to make sense of what they were facing. "It's consuming space itself," Lennox said one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. She had been staring at a holographic representation of the anomaly for hours, her face pale. The Devourer. That's what the old inscriptions called it. The Devourer? Mira's eyes narrowed. You said it was some kind of signal, a beacon. Are you saying this thing is what was summoned by the sphere? I don't think it was summoned, Lennox corrected. I think it was awakened. The Devourer is ancient, predating the formation of our galaxy. There were once civilizations, maybe even human-like species, that fought it. They left behind traces of their history, hidden deep in the universe, warnings for those who might come after. That sphere, it was one of those traces. And we ignored the warnings, Mira said grimly, pacing the deck. Now it's here, and it's wiping us out. How do we fight something that eats space and time? Lennox sighed. We're trying to understand it, but this is beyond our science. We've detected massive gravitational waves coming from the regions affected by the Devourer. It doesn't just consume, it alters the fabric of reality. Planets destabilize, stars flicker out. We can't track it because it doesn't operate on any known physical principles. It's a force of nature, or something worse. As Lennox spoke, Mira felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The universe was vast and filled with mysteries they barely understood. But this was something primal, something that humanity had never encountered before. She felt powerless, and for someone like her, that was an alien feeling. And yet, there was another sensation creeping in, something deeper and more instinctual. Anger. It gnawed at her, growing stronger every time she saw the loss of life, every time another colony fell silent. She clenched her fists tightly, feeling the cold metal of her command deck railing beneath her palms. Humanity had spread across the stars to build something great, and now it was all being torn away by an indifferent cosmic force. We're not going to let it win, Mira said, more to herself than to Lennox. But Lennox heard her, nodding slowly. We may not have a choice, Lennox whispered. This thing, it's too big, too powerful. It doesn't even seem aware of us as individuals. It's like we're just ants in its path. But Mira wasn't listening. Instead, her mind wandered back to the ancient mural they had found in the caverns of Orion's Reach. The distorted figures, almost human-like, standing defiantly against a massive dark shape. They had fought this thing before, and they had left something behind, something that hinted at power, power that Mira could feel stirring inside her. Days passed, and the situation worsened. Star systems near the galactic core began to show signs of disruption. The Galactic Council declared a state of emergency, but there was little they could do. Fleets were deployed to defend critical colonies, but they were fighting an enemy that didn't conform to any known rules of engagement. Weapons meant to destroy matter passed through the Devourer like it wasn't even there. Shields designed to deflect energy dissolved under its presence. Mira's frustration grew. It wasn't just the helplessness of the situation. It was the overwhelming sense of injustice. Humanity had fought hard to expand beyond Earth, to build a civilization that spanned the stars, and now something incomprehensible was tearing it all down. But beneath that frustration, something else bubbled, a rage that was not entirely her own. On the day New Viridian, a major colony, was consumed by the Devourer, Mira stood in the observation bay of her ship, watching the newsfeed. The planet disappeared in moments, swallowed by the shadowy presence like it had never existed. She could feel the anger rising again, but this time it wasn't just a personal fury. It was something more profound. It felt as if the entire galaxy was vibrating with it, as though the collective will of humanity itself was stirring. And then something strange happened. The sky above the horizon's edge crackled with energy, much like it had on Orion's Reach. Mira rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding. She expected another catastrophic event, but instead, the stars outside seemed to shift. The darkness surrounding her ship didn't feel as empty as it had before. There was a pulse to it, a subtle rhythm that resonated deep within her chest. Colonel, one of her officers said nervously, we're detecting unusual energy signatures around the ship, but they're not coming from the Devourer. It's something else. Mira stared at the holographic readout, watching as tendrils of energy appeared out of nowhere, spiraling around the ship. It was the same type of energy they had seen in the cracks above Orion's Reach, but this time it felt controlled, focused. Get Lennox up here, Mira ordered. When Dr. Lennox arrived, she stared in awe at the readings. It's reacting to us, she whispered. This energy. It's not from the devourer. It's coming from the universe itself, responding to the emotions we're emitting, the anger. It's amplifying the field. Mira felt it now, too. The fury that had been bubbling inside her wasn't just her own. It was part of something much larger, something connected to the galaxy itself. Humanity's collective anger was creating ripples in space-time, bending the very fabric of reality. It was a power they had never known they possessed, and it was growing stronger with every world the devourer consumed. Mira's eyes burned with determination. We've been fighting this thing with the wrong weapons, she said, her voice hardening. It's not technology that's going to stop it. It's us, our will, our fury. This thing doesn't realize what it's done. Dr. Lennox stared at her, eyes wide with realization. You're right. It's waking something up, something ancient within us. The devourer might be a force of nature, but we're about to become one too. The energy around the ship intensified, and for the first time, Mira felt hope. The universe itself was beginning to respond to humanity's fury. And soon, the devourer would too. The darkness at the edge of the galaxy was no longer a distant threat. It was everywhere. The devourer's creeping presence had already consumed dozens of colonies, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Mira Vance, aboard her flagship, the Horizon's Edge, had witnessed the annihilation firsthand. It was unlike any war humanity had ever fought. There were no battles, no enemies to engage with, just a slow, inevitable erasure of everything they had built. But something had changed after the incident on Orion's Reach. The sphere, the cracks in the sky, and the pulsing energy that seemed to respond to human emotion had revealed something incredible. Humanity had a power hidden deep within them, an ability to manipulate the universe itself, connected somehow to their emotions, their rage. It was ancient, primal, and it was growing stronger. Now the galaxy stood on the brink of total collapse. The Galactic Council was in disarray, powerless against the devourer. Fleets had been dispatched to defend critical systems, but the void-like entity continued its advance, indifferent to the technology humanity had relied on for centuries. Desperation filled every corner of the galaxy, but it wasn't fear that Mira felt anymore. It was fury. Mira stood on the command deck of the Horizon's Edge, staring at the holographic projection of the galaxy before her. It was riddled with dark voids where star systems had once been. The map pulsed, flickering in and out as the edges of the darkness slowly moved inward, consuming more space each day. The devourer was relentless, its progress like a creeping shadow that erased everything in its path. Around her, the crew worked tirelessly, though everyone knew the futility of it. The fleet's weapons couldn't harm the devourer. Shields couldn't stop it. Their technology, so advanced and powerful, was utterly useless against something that wasn't even alive in the traditional sense. And yet, Mira's mind was focused on something else, the energy that had begun to resonate with humanity's growing anger. Colonel Vance, Dr. Lennox said, approaching her from the control station, eyes dark with sleeplessness. We've finished analyzing the readings from the last energy surge. The data confirms what we suspected. The cracks in space, the energy pulses, they're linked to human emotion, specifically anger. The more emotionally charged our people become, the stronger the energy field. Mira turned to Lennox, her expression steely. You're saying the universe is reacting to us? Exactly. The anomalies we're seeing aren't random. They're direct responses to the collective emotional state of humanity. And it's not just on the Horizon's Edge. We've been monitoring other sectors. Similar energy spikes are occurring on planets and ships where people are feeling extreme emotions, particularly frustration and rage. It's like the universe itself is bending to our will. Mira clenched her fists. If that's true, we need to find a way to channel it. That's the problem, Lennox said, biting her lip. We don't fully understand how to control it. These surges are unpredictable. If we push too hard, we could tear apart reality itself. But if we don't push hard enough, the devourer will consume everything, Mira finished for her. She could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. the desperation of billions of lives at stake. But underneath that weight, something else had begun to stir inside her, a power that she could feel growing with every passing day. "We don't have a choice," Mira said after a long pause. "We need to harness this energy, even if it means taking risks. We can't fight the Devourer with conventional weapons, and if our anger is the key, then we need to learn how to use it before it's too late." Lennox nodded, though her expression was grim. "I'll get to work on focusing the energy field, but we're venturing into the unknown, Colonel. There's no telling what kind of consequences this could have." Mira didn't flinch. "We're already dealing with the consequences of doing nothing." The Devourer loomed closer to the galactic core. Each day, more systems vanished, erased as though they had never existed. But as the darkness spread, so too did the strange crackling energy that seemed to mirror humanity's anger. On planets where people watched their worlds crumble, and on ships where soldiers mourned lost comrades, the skies began to shimmer with an unnatural light. The more despair turned into rage, the more the universe responded. Mira's fleet, one of the few remaining active in the outer systems, had been ordered to defend the critical colony of New Eden. The planet, home to over 2 billion people, was a symbol of humanity's greatest achievements. A thriving metropolis of culture, science, and art, it was also directly in the Devourer's path. As the horizon's edge dropped out of FTL, the scene before them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The darkness of the Devourer stretched across space like a living void, blotting out stars and planets. It was larger than anything they had anticipated, its sheer size incomprehensible. It swallowed light, creating a ripple of distortion in space itself. Mira stood at the helm of her ship, her heart pounding. "Status report," she barked. "Shields are holding, but we're detecting gravitational anomalies," Lieutenant Hale replied. "The Devourer's influence is already affecting space-time around the planet. It's pulling us in." "Send out a signal to the fleet," Mira ordered. "Prepare all ships for immediate engagement. We're not letting that thing reach New Eden." As the fleet moved into position, Mira felt the rising anger within her, like a fire that refused to be extinguished. She knew deep down that this wasn't just about survival. It was about defiance. Humanity wasn't going to lie down and die quietly. The Devourer loomed closer, its presence more oppressive by the second. As the first wave of ships fired their weapons, the void simply absorbed the energy, ripples of darkness spreading across its surface like a stone dropped into a black ocean. "Conventional weapons are useless," Lennox said from her station. "We need to trigger another energy surge." Mira nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She closed her eyes, focusing on the burning rage inside her. Her mind raced with images of the fallen colonies, the silent screams of billions of people erased from existence. That anger, that raw, undiluted fury, began to swell within her chest. "Everyone focus," Mira ordered, her voice low but commanding. "Think of what we've lost. Think of what we're about to lose. Channel it, every ounce of anger you have." Around her, the crew obeyed, their faces twisted with concentration and suppressed rage. And then it happened. The air around them began to hum. The holographic screens flickered, distorting with pulses of energy. Outside the ship, space itself seemed to bend, the stars warping as the crackling energy reappeared. Tendrils of light snaked through the darkness, wrapping around the ship like living vines of raw power. "It's happening again," Lennox said, her voice a mixture of awe and terror. "The energy is responding." Mira felt it too, the surge of power coursing through her veins, as if the universe itself had come alive inside her. She opened her eyes, and for the first time the void of the Devourer seemed to hesitate. The distortion in space pulsed, almost recoiling from the energy emanating from the fleet. "Focus it," Mira yelled. "All ships, focus your energy on the Devourer. We can stop it." The fleet complied. Every crew member on every ship, from the smallest frigate to the massive battleships, concentrated their emotions, their fury, their grief. The universe bent to their will. The tendrils of light grew brighter, stronger, until they lashed out, connecting with the Devourer in a brilliant explosion of energy. The void screamed. The sound wasn't audible, but they felt it in their bones. A deep, guttural roar that reverberated through space itself. For the first time, the devourer seemed to falter. The darkness fractured, tiny cracks appearing in its impenetrable surface. "It's working!" Lennox cried out, disbelief and hope flashing across her face. Mira watched in awe as the cracks spread, each one filled with blinding light, as though the universe itself was tearing apart the devourer from the inside. But she knew they couldn't stop. Not yet. "More!" Mira yelled, her voice hoarse. "Give it everything you've got!" The crew, their faces contorted with exertion, pushed harder. The energy surging from their emotions intensified, flooding the space around them. The light spread, engulfing the devourer as the cracks widened. The creature, if it could even be called that, let out another bone-shaking roar as its form began to unravel. And then, with one final surge of power, the devourer shattered. The void collapsed in on itself, the darkness dissipating into nothingness. The light of the stars returned, flickering back into existence like candles relit after a storm. The universe fell silent. Mira stood frozen, her chest heaving with exhaustion and disbelief. They had done it. They had stopped the devourer, not with technology or weapons, but with the sheer force of their will. As the crew erupted into cheers, Mira allowed herself a brief moment of relief. But deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. They had tapped into something ancient and dangerous, a power that had slumbered within them for eons. The universe had trembled when they got angry, and now it was theirs to command. The light from the shattered remains of the devourer faded into the backdrop of the starry sky. Silence filled the void, but it wasn't the eerie silence of annihilation that had accompanied the devourer's march across the galaxy. This was the quiet after the storm, a pause in the universe's breath. For a moment, everything was still. On the horizon's edge, Mira Vance stood at the center of her command deck, surrounded by the remnants of a crew too stunned to celebrate yet, too exhausted to realize the magnitude of what had just happened. They had won. But as the adrenaline of the battle drained from her veins, Mira found herself standing on the edge of something far larger than victory. They had shattered the devourer, an entity that had consumed entire worlds and seemed unstoppable. But they had done it not with technology or strategy, but with something that lay deep within themselves, something ancient, untapped, and dangerously powerful. The crew slowly began to realize the enormity of their victory. Cheers broke out, hesitant at first but soon filling the air with relief and euphoria. Some hugged, others wept. But Mira remained still, her eyes scanning the vast space beyond. She could feel it, deep in her bones. The universe had shifted, and the consequences of what they had unleashed were only beginning to unfold. Dr. Lennox approached cautiously, her face a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Colonel," she began softly, "what we did, I'm not sure we fully understand it yet." Mira nodded, her eyes still locked on the stars. "Neither do I." Hours passed, and the fleet regrouped. Communication channels across the galaxy were buzzing with the news. The devourer is gone. The news spread like wildfire, igniting hope in sectors that had been on the brink of despair. People on New Eden poured into the streets, celebrating their miraculous survival. Other worlds, previously silent, began sending out distress calls, their relief palpable as the threat evaporated. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense that perhaps the galaxy could be saved after all. But something strange was happening. Mira could feel it, and so could Lennox. The energy field they had tapped into during the battle against the devourer hadn't dissipated. If anything, it was growing stronger, more defined. The cracks in space that had once signaled doom now shimmered with light, radiating power like veins of fire threading through the galaxy. In the days that followed, reports began trickling in from across the human-controlled systems. People everywhere were experiencing strange phenomena. On Earth, children born in the aftermath of the devourer's destruction exhibited inexplicable abilities. The power to manipulate objects with their minds, the ability to heal wounds with a mere touch, even the capacity to warp the very fabric of space around them. On distant colonies, soldiers found themselves moving faster, reacting quicker, as though their bodies had been enhanced by the energy that now saturated the universe. Mira watched these developments with growing concern. The power that had saved them from annihilation wasn't just a weapon, it was transforming them. And the transformation was spreading. The next test came without warning. A new threat emerged, not from beyond the galaxy, but from within it. In the wake of the Devourer's destruction, a small, isolated star system near the galactic core experienced a sudden and violent collapse. The star at its center destabilized without explanation, imploding into a supernova that wiped out the entire system within minutes. It was as though the universe itself had reacted violently to the surge of power unleashed during the battle. Mira received the distress signal only moments before the event, and by the time the fleet arrived, there was nothing left but a cloud of debris and a fading light where a star had once burned. The reports were chilling. The same energy they had used to destroy the Devourer had caused the collapse. The unleashed power had destabilized the very fabric of space-time in that region. Dr. Lennox delivered the grim news. "Colonel, the energy we're dealing with, it's not just a tool. It's raw, unrefined cosmic force. We disrupted the balance when we fought the Devourer, and now the universe is responding to the imbalance. This isn't over." Mira clenched her fists. She had suspected as much. They had tapped into something far beyond their control, something that had once been dormant but was now wide awake. "How do we stop it?" she asked. Lennox shook her head. "I don't know if we can. The energy field is alive in a way. It's tied to us, to our emotions, our collective consciousness. It's like the universe is reacting to what we feel. The more we push, the more it pushes back." Mira stared at the star charts. The once calm, predictable patterns of the universe now tinged with instability. Her mind raced through the possibilities. They had unlocked something immense, but at what cost? Could they control it, or would it consume them as it had nearly consumed the Devourer? But then a realization dawned on her. The Devourer had been a threat from outside, but this new power was internal. It was part of them now, part of humanity. It wasn't inherently evil or destructive, it was raw. And like all power, it could be wielded for good or ill. "Then we have to learn to control it," Mira said, her voice firm. "If this power is tied to us, we need to understand it, master it. Otherwise, we're no better than the Devourer." Lennox's eyes widened. "You're talking about harnessing it? You saw what it did. It destabilized a star." Mira met her gaze with steel in her eyes. "And it saved us from the Devourer. If we don't learn how to control it, it'll tear us apart. But if we can master it, it could be our salvation." The decision was made. Mira ordered her fleet to return to Orion's Reach, where it had all begun. The planet had become a symbol, the place where the ancient power had first been awakened, and now it would be the site of their attempt to control it. Weeks later, the horizon's edge hovered in orbit above Orion's Reach. The cracks in the sky that had first appeared during the discovery of the sphere were still present, but now they pulsed with a steady, rhythmic light. Below, the planet's surface had transformed into a seething landscape of energy storms and fissures. But the source of the power, the sphere, remained intact, glowing brighter than ever. Mira stood at the front of the bridge, looking down at the planet below. This was where humanity would make its stand, not against an external threat, but against its own rising power. "We need to understand it," Mira said quietly, as though speaking to the universe itself. "And we need to make sure it never consumes us." Lennox joined her, watching as the energy fields below shimmered and pulsed with unpredictable beauty. "Do you think we can?" Mira smiled, though it was tinged with the weight of uncertainty. "We've been fighting to survive for centuries. We survived the Devourer. We can survive this." She paused, her voice soft but resolute. "But we have to remember one thing. This power, it responds to our emotions, to our anger. If we let that control us, if we become consumed by rage, then we will become the very thing we fought to destroy." Lennox nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We have to find balance." Mira's eyes burned with determination as she looked out at the stars. "We will, because now, the universe knows something it never expected. When humans get angry, the stars themselves tremble." And with that, The next chapter in humanity's story began, one not written by the external forces of the universe, but by their own hands, their own emotions, and the power they had unlocked within themselves. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They were no longer just explorers of the stars. They had become shapers of the universe itself.